Today we're going to compare Austin, Texas versus Raleigh, North Carolina. If you're new to the channel, my name's Ben. I originally lived in Dallas, Texas for 10 years, and it wasn't too long ago that me and my wife were looking at a new place to move, and we considered both Austin and Raleigh. If you were to do a quick Google search and say, what are the top cities that people are moving to, consistently you would find both Raleigh and Austin on those lists. And you also won't be surprised to learn that a lot of those people are coming from the West Coast, like California, for example. I get calls almost every day from somebody who's either coming from California or they're trying to invest out of state from California, and they're looking at, no surprise, Raleigh, and they're looking at Texas. And at first glance, it might seem like they're two completely different cities, but they also have a lot in common. Today, we're gonna break down all those differences and similarities, the pros and the cons, and help you make the best decision. So let's start with the vibe check. Austin is a little more younger demographically, it's a little more urban, and you're gonna find that it has much more of a nightlife compared to Raleigh. The saying that goes around Austin is keep Austin weird. You've probably heard somebody say that. And they like being different and unique and spunky. And you'll see that in their restaurants, in their shopping, in the way that they probably were playing pickleball before most of the nation had caught on to it. Raleigh, on the other hand, is definitely more family friendly. It's a little more mature, a little more traditional in comparison. Now, one reason that Raleigh and Austin are both increasingly popular places for people to move to, especially young people, is because of our growing job markets. Both of these markets are some of the fastest growing job markets in the US, growing at about 4% per year. Now, Austin is primarily known as a tech hub, and there's a lot of new innovating companies that are popping up there. We definitely have like Google there and Tesla. And I think they get a lot of their talent from the local university, UT Austin. That's the University of Texas. It's a very competitive, well-known college. Although we have a little bit of tech, here in Raleigh, we're known primarily for research. We have the nation's largest research park, which attracts a lot of pharmaceutical companies, some tech companies. We also have a lot of healthcare companies in the area, primarily run by our major universities. So we have Duke University, which is a well-known college. Pretty much everyone knows about Duke by this point. We have UNC in Chapel Hill, and that was actually the first college in America. And then we have North Carolina State University in downtown. So we have 3 tier 1 universities in the triangle, and that's exactly why we have major employers like Apple coming into the area so that they can draw from those talent pools. And so it's not really a surprise that both Austin and Raleigh have pretty competitive schools even at the lower levels. But as far as public schools go, Wake County, which covers Raleigh and its other suburbs, does outperform the Austin County school system. And I've talked about this before, but there are some incredible private schools in the Raleigh area and surrounding, like Cary, North Carolina, for example. Definitely check out this video if you're interested to learn more about that. Now, let's talk about cost of living. So I know for me, when we were looking at a place to move, that was extremely important. And I've broken down the Raleigh's cost of living beforehand in one of my other videos. I'll link that above. But the big difference that you're going to find is the cost of housing. So if you were renting, I don't think you would have a big problem. But if you were looking for a house, then you would want to know that housing is about $120,000 more on average in Austin than it is in Raleigh. And that makes housing affordability a much bigger issue down in Texas than it does up here in North Carolina. Both cities are at or well above the median average. So I'm not saying either of these cities are affordable or cheap, but as someone who knew they wanted to buy a house when they moved, I not only cared about the home prices, but I also cared about the appreciation. I wanted to know that if I owned a home for 5 to 10 years, that I would build up equity in that home, it would grow in value, and if I were to sell it later, then I could, create wealth off of that. That's important to me, and it should be important to you too. So the good news is, because they're both growing at such a fast pace, and there are no signs that that's going to stop anytime soon, I would feel personally comfortable owning a home in either Austin or Raleigh, knowing that it's going to go up in value. Over the last 10-15 years, Austin was growing at a faster rate than Raleigh. They both were growing pretty fast, but Austin was definitely taking the lead, and it definitely hit a higher price point faster than Raleigh did, for sure, once it kind of got put on the map. But Raleigh, in recent years has actually started growing faster than Austin, well past COVID, which is actually very encouraging to see because obviously a lot of cities grew really fast during COVID, and the ones that were already growing fast, they got propelled forward. But we want to see what happens once everything slowed down. While other cities are going flat or even declining, what's going on? Both cities are continuing to go, but Raleigh is finally taking the lead there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward. Now, change of pace, let's talk about the climate. This was actually honestly the biggest deciding factor for me personally. The reason that I even wanted to move out of Texas was because I was tired of the heat. I didn't think there was enough nature. Austin is actually a beautiful place. So it's very, not mountainous, but it's very hilly. It's got this beautiful river that runs through it. It's got trees everywhere and trails. Austin is one of the most active cities in the US. I remember reading that in my research and just, having been there, I can tell you that firsthand. Now, Raleigh is also a very active city, and everywhere you go here, people are outside. There's parks everywhere, there's trails. People are outside all hours of the day. I love that so much. From an active standpoint, you can't go wrong either way. I just know that in Texas, when it's 100, 110, 115, and there's humidity being down in Austin, I hibernate during the summer. I don't go outside. And that's not the lifestyle that I want to have, but I just don't like the heat. I want all 4 seasons. And with Raleigh, you get all 4 seasons. You get a beautiful fall season, you get mild temperatures year round, and on top of that, we have access to both mountains and the ocean. We're a 2-hour drive on the dot to the East Coast, and we're about 2 to 3 hours from the mountains to our west. And that was the perfect setup because we can pretty much hit one up one weekend, one up the other. We've been very active ever since moving here. We've enjoyed the weather and the access to nature very, very much, but I don't think you'll be too disappointed with Austin outside of the heat. Now let's talk about things to do in Austin versus Raleigh. So Austin is known for its music scene, its food scene, and then it's known for its nightlife. So Austin is a party city. It has more than just partying, but that's kind of what it's known for, being a major college town. And for a college town, it's pretty big. It is the state's capital, which by the way, Raleigh is also the state's capital. But in comparison, like I said earlier, Raleigh's not going to have as much of a nightlife. We throw events, we have concerts, we have the PNC Arena, so we have major NHL hockey teams that get pretty rough and rowdy, which those are fun to go to. And we have a big sports, college sports scene, which by the way, obviously, so does Austin. The UT Austin football team is a pretty competitive football team, and they always throw on some really good games, and I know that's a huge thing for the locals who live there. If you were to ask me, how did we decide to move to Raleigh versus Austin? At the end of the day, we made a trip. We made many trips to check out the areas and actually get a feel for what it was like. So we stayed in a local Airbnb in a neighborhood. We pretended like we lived there. We drove around. We looked at some houses. We met people who lived here, and that's how we made our decision. It actually made our decision extremely easy. I think both cities on this list are great. They both have pros and cons depending on what you're looking for. If you want to learn more about Raleigh, North Carolina, about our real estate, you have questions, or you're actually ready to make a move and you need help getting a game plan, then I want you to call that number below when you're ready, or you can just click the link in the description, set up a time to chat with me and my team. I hope this video was helpful. If you want to learn more about living in Raleigh, watch one of these videos next. I'm Benjamin, and I'll see you there.